Welcome to We Question and Learn. This is Tom Pies. We're celebrating our 20th year on the air here at WQLN FM 91.3, WQLN NPR. A real joy to be on the air all these years and having had the opportunity to talk to some folks very prevalent and very important in the community. And I'm going to say this, Karen Bilowith is with us. She is the president and CEO of the Erie Community Foundation. And not to be forgotten, a good friend and a hard worker, Karen, Erin Fessler, Vice President of Marketing and Community Government Relations. Thank you both for taking time out of your busy day to chat with us here on We Question and Learn.
Thank you for the opportunity. Absolutely. It's always fun to be with you.
Things have changed over the years. We were chatting for a half a second before we started recording here. In the last, you've been there 2013?
Actually, 2021.
Oh, I gave you a whole bunch of extra years.
You did, but that's okay. I feel like I've been here longer.
October of 2021, and you lead the foundation's efforts to inspire, engage, and empower donors and communities across the region. You work with everyone, boards of trustees. You work with your staff and your board. You serve on the Erie Action Team and the Board of Managers for, now, Infinite Erie. Could you tell us what that is real quick?
Absolutely. Infinite Erie is a public-private and philanthropic partnership that is helping to leverage funding to support economic and community development initiatives across the region. And it's a really important effort to help us collaboratively and collectively address some really challenging issues. And we have a set of 35 projects that were identified in a study that was done by New Localism Associates, and we're getting those projects underway, moving them along to being shovel ready, and then securing investments. So the Community Foundation's interest in it is that many of the projects are really focused on helping our residents engage in the community and creating better outcomes for our community. So our philanthropic support is critical to the work of Infinite Erie.
And of course, on the board of directors of both the nonprofit partnership, which everyone in Erie hopefully knows about, and the Pennsylvania Community Foundation Association. And since you have all this free time on your hands, you're also the team lead of the Erie Supportive Housing Project, which is a very near and dear project to our community. And you're also a member of the Hammett Health Foundation Board, the Board of Corporators, and the Erie Women's Fund. And, of course, your favorite job, the Erie Community Foundation. Thank you for taking...
That's right.
I was teasing you. I said, when do you sleep? And with you is a dear friend, and I know she works very hard in our community, Erin Fessler, as Vice President of Marketing and Community/Government Relations. Could you give us a quick 30-second elevator speech on what you have to do all day?
Sure. So I say working at the Erie Community Foundation is like driving a Standard. You're shifting gears all day long, and so every day is different and exciting. But overall, the marketing, the communications, our signature events would be the annual meeting in Erie Gives. So those are a big team effort that we pull off every year. They fall in talking to our community about what we do. And then that's what we do in June. And then in August, we say, hey, here's a way to be introduced to philanthropy through your gives. And then if someone wants to become more involved, they can establish an endowment through the Public Philanthropic Services team and really give back to our community and make an impact.
Before we go too far, this is going to be a strange question. It's not a difficult question, but there are people, and you probably find this hard to believe, that really do not understand how the Erie Community Foundation works. This is a primer, okay? Some people think of you as like the United Way, which does good work, but that's not what you do. Your mission, vision, and your structure is a community foundation. Could you educate some of us as to what that really means?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. I like to think about it as, in its simplest form, the Community Foundation is we sit at the center of generous individuals and nonprofit organizations that are doing great work in our community. So our mission, as Erin said, is to inspire, engage, and empower communities. And what that means is that we work with people who want to support either organizations, causes, or initiatives in our community, and we help match those with the nonprofits that are doing great work in the community. The simplest or the entryway to that, as Erin said, is often Erie Gives. So that's a way that people can go on, support their favorite organization with a gift as small as $25. And then we work with donors who are thinking about making more of an impact in their community, maybe by making a gift through their estate. But we're able to really facilitate the generosity in our community and ensure that it's being used for good now and in the future. So what we do is complex, but at the same time, it's really simple. We harness the generosity of our community.
So after all these years, nothing has changed, or has the organization graduated from one form to another, say sometime in the past to today?
I would say that the Erie Community Foundation and community foundations in general have evolved over the years. We started out as a way to really help facilitate estates and estate giving. And now we really actively engage with donors while they're living to ensure that their interests in philanthropy are stewarded through the different funds that we have here. And our approach to philanthropy is very inclusive, and I think that has changed over time. So we have three affinity funds, the Erie Women's Funds, the LGBT funds, and Emerging Erie, which are really ways to reach out to other groups in our community that may not be what you think of when you think of traditional philanthropy. We're really thinking about how can we find ways for everybody in our community to be involved not only in philanthropy, but with making our community better. So we inspire not just giving, but also engagement in the community.
As you know, Tom, we're going to be celebrating our 90th anniversary in 2025. And even when I started at the foundation, when I first began, we would help nonprofits with a new roof, a new furnace, a new air conditioning system, wheelchair ramps. But as time has marched on, the needs are much greater. And so our Shaping Tomorrow programs and our transformational grant-making programs are more big picture that impacts everyone and improves the quality of life for all. So one thing what we do know is we don't know what the needs will be 90 years from now, but we always know that community will need its community foundation. And for the size of Erie, to have a community foundation that is this old and this generous is pretty impactful.
Karen, you mentioned Erie Gives. I totally remember Erie Gives Day, and as a matter of confession here, I sat on that board for quite a while and thought it was effective coordinating the efforts between nonprofits, not to make them competitive, but to make them partners. And under the guidance of the Erie Community Foundation and your outstanding program, Erie Gives, you did a lot for this community. Can you talk a little bit about Erie Gives and how well it's done, say, over the last year?
Absolutely. I'll just remind you and everybody listening that this year Erie Gives raised over $9.7 million for 500 nonprofit organizations. So that is incredible. We've grown Erie Gives every year, and that's thanks to Erin's leadership. So I want to recognize her, even though you asked me the question. And I think it's important to remember that Erie Gives does a couple of things that are critical to the health of our nonprofit community. One is it raises mostly unrestricted funds for those nonprofits. So as I said, it's a way for anyone to learn about a nonprofit organization, contribute to nonprofit organizations, and with a gift as small as $25. So it's a good entry-level way for people to become involved in philanthropy. It also, because of the way Erie Gives works, the organizations receive the names of their donors, and it helps them build up their donor list. And that's really important as organizations continue to solicit funds throughout the year. And I think we like to think about it actually as, for a lot of organizations, it becomes their annual appeal for the year. So it gives them a little extra support that they may need to help with that fundraising.
When we first started out, it was just an online day of giving, and we only had 200 nonprofits signed up. And now we're up to over 500 nonprofits, and people can use their IRAs to give and stock gifts. So it's much more complex than it ever was before, and that's why the turnaround time takes us a little bit longer. But the value of Erie Gives is everyone's a part of something bigger than themselves.
So you have a strategic plan. You're well into it. Couple of areas that are important to the community and important to the Erie Community Foundation. Tell us about how your plan is going so far.
I think that goes back to your question about how we have evolved over the years. So the strategic plan was an opportunity to reflect on what makes us strong, what our community appreciates about the Community Foundation, and it confirmed what we call our brand promise, which is that we're a trustworthy and permanent steward of Greater Erie's generosity. And through the power of collective giving, we transform lives. So that's really what makes the Community Foundation different than other foundations, other philanthropies, is that we are engaging many people across the community in this collective giving. So we have over 900 individual funds under our umbrella, and all of those are helping support our community. Our strategic plan is really focused on what we call inclusive philanthropy, and I mentioned that earlier, and that's to inspire the broadest range of people across the community to participate, and also to really think about how the money that we've been entrusted with is being used in the community to support nonprofits that work with residents across the community. So inclusivity means a lot of things, including geographically inclusive. We want to make sure we're touching all parts of our county and working with different groups of people and residents across the community. It also, our community impact work through the strategic plan, and Erin mentioned this, we're thinking about ways that with some of our larger grants, we can really be impactful in the community by using data to inform that work, but also to be sure that our grant making is community informed. And what we mean by that is that we work with the nonprofits and the residents who are being impacted to ensure that there is voice in our philanthropy and that the programs that are being delivered are reflective of the communities that they serve. So that's an evolution for us, but we still have all levels of grant making is the way I like to think about it, with Erie Gives being, as a donor, you pick the organization, to more strategic grant making through our larger funds.
Now, you've changed the mission statement and your vision statement. That was a couple of years ago. And you also did some new logos. How's that all working out?
Sure. So our logo really represents a refreshed, modernized version of the acorn, but the acorn remains the same. And what an acorn represents is an endowment, which creates permanent giving forever. I guess that's redundant. But we envision a vibrant and thriving region for all. And so when Karen mentioned the regions that we are involved with, we have community foundations in Corey, Union City, Northeast, and Finley Lake. They all have new logos. They're part of our family of logos. And the acorn is there just to represent how, if you were to plant an acorn today, it could grow into a mighty oak tree. I think that's what it grows into. But
yes.
So, and then oak trees around forever. But yes, when you look at community foundations across the country, I think there's over 700 of them. We rank in the top 10% for the size of our community foundation compared to the size of our city. But when I meet with colleagues, a lot of them have they have no unrestricted money. So what that means is they can only do what the donor's wishes are. And that makes an impact in their community. But our donors, I don't know what the percentage is, but unrestricted giving allows every quarter for our Board of Trustees to make decisions with funds that donors gave years ago that they want to benefit the community today. So, for example, 30, 40 years ago, the Make-A-Wish Society did not need new computers, but now we have laptops and cell phones that we didn't have 30, 40 years ago. So that's just an example of how, as our world changes, so do the needs change.
I was just going to add that what's really interesting, I think, is that across the country, in terms of community needs, the needs in the aggregate are similar. We hear housing is a critical need in almost every community across the country. We hear health, social determinants of health, addressing those are really important. But the way that the community responds and implements or executes strategies to address those needs, I think that's what's different in every community. And it's really, in most communities, the Community Foundation has a unique opportunity and role to help convene partners around challenges and find out the best way to address those locally. So if I'm talking with a donor about why to give through the Community Foundation, and especially to our unrestricted funds, Erin already mentioned this earlier, the challenges of our community will change over time, but having an active board of directors and Community Foundation that is bringing partners together to think about how to address those needs, that will always be a necessary thing to happen.
That's an outstanding vote of trust, being mostly unrestricted, forgive me, in the way the gifts are sent out. Now, that doesn't mean you arbitrarily send money out. You do a good deal of research. Yeah, okay. We just want people to understand this is not a credit card. You, as the Erie Community Foundation, have important duties to your donors. You have to prove what you've done is effective.
That's right. And it's funny because if anybody ever sat in one of our grant committee meetings or one of our board meetings, they would understand that it is not an easy task to approve requests, especially because we get so many more requests than we have funds available. But the Community Foundation does take very seriously its role to steward those funds. So if a donor gives either unrestricted or for a specific purpose, we not only work with the nonprofits to make sure that the money is going to be used impactfully and, like I said earlier, is being used in a way that the community being served appreciates, but it's also our duty, as you say, to go back to our donors and say, this is how our funds were used to gain their support and future support. So we have to, I've been asked the question in a lot of different ways over the years by donors who are thinking about setting up a fund, and it goes to building that trust and how do we know that our money will be used the way that we say. And my answer is always, if we don't do that, then nobody else will give and our Community Foundation won't grow. So there's a lot of check and balances in our work.
You have donor advised funds, and you have to answer to those, I believe, every year, and it's some percentage of what you do. Those are important as well, because as a person wants to leave a legacy, he wants to see his, quotation marks, favorite organization succeed and be around for many years to come. So you have those funds. I'm not sure how you manage that.
So donor advised funds are a very specific type of fund that a donor will set up while they are living, and they can make recommendations on distributions from the fund. So many of our donors, the process is very simple. They make recommendations. We ensure that the nonprofits are valid nonprofit organizations, and we send out the grants. And many of the donors ask our staff for information or recommendations, or even to help gather information so that they can make effective grants through their donor advised funds. And I love donor advised funds because they give the donor the opportunity to build that trust in the Community Foundation while they're here working with us as a partner. And then we hope that many of those donors will leave through their estate a gift to perpetuate the donor advised funds. And then they can set it up to fund specific organizations, go into our grant making, our unrestricted grant making funds, or something in between that. So they're really flexible, and donors have a lot of choices when it comes to donor advised funds as a vehicle. But by working with the Community Foundation, they get the added value of the expertise that our staff has gained by being involved with over 500 organizations through things like Erie Gives.
I'm going to direct a short question to Erin. You're well experienced in your activities around the Erie Community Foundation. In your daily work, doing the marketing and duties as assigned, which I notice is about 30 other things, how do you see our community relative to, has it changed? Is it more difficult to raise money? Has the demographic changed? As a marketing person, what are you seeing in the Erie community?
I think what you're seeing is donors want to give to causes. They want to give to, whether it's helping the poor, children, the arts, human services, whatever topic pulls at their heartstrings seems to be where they want to know the stories. So our goals for 2025 are to tell more of those stories. We've always told the stories, but we're going to, dive in a little deeper more with donors and what donors give. It's easy to tell why a nonprofit needs a new roof or needs a new program or needs wheelchairs for kids. That's an easy story to tell. But the harder story to tell is donors and why they do it. So we have a couple meetings lined up with donors coming up who've lost a loved one, and they've established a scholarship fund in memory of that person. We have somebody else who's coming in to talk about how they have passion for education, and they want to establish a fund that's just for educational purposes. So that is what I've seen over the years, is that it's not necessarily one particular nonprofit, but they want to give to causes.
Excellent. I'm talking with Karen Bilowith, President and CEO of the Erie Community Foundation, and Erin Fessler, Vice President of Marketing, Community Government Relations. I'm sure they're going to create a short abbreviation for that for you, although the title is well descriptive. So I think if someone calls you or talks to you, they can almost immediately understand what you folks are doing. As you look at the foundation, say, let's see, you have one more year on your plan. That is your strategic plan. And I'm betting $1 that you're already writing or at least putting together raw material for your next plan. Do you see any major changes in what you need to do in our community?
One of the things that we really is part of our strategy in this strategic plan, but I think we will continue to build on it, is creating alignment and collaboration with other funders in the community so that we can drive transformative change. When the resources that are going toward community challenges and opportunities aren't aligned, we won't be as impactful. And even though the Community Foundation does have, a very large endowment and the ability to make some large grants, if we have partners in that work, we will be much more successful.
A question I always ask, and I'm sure you'll be enthused to answer it. The board, what is the responsibility of your board, and how do they help?
We have an excellent board of directors, and one of the requirements for community foundations as public charities is that our board is representative of the community that we serve. So we try to think about that when we're building our board. They are responsible, as a nonprofit board, they have fiduciary responsibility over the organization. So that's a substantial commitment. But really what we look to our board for is a couple of things. We expect our board to be ambassadors for the Community Foundation, to be out there in their networks and in their community to talk about the work that we do and how it's easy to get involved in the Community Foundation. They do review our grant strategies, our grant applications to some extent. So they're really helping drive the direction of the foundation, the strategic direction. And that's critically important. One of the things that we did through this strategic plan, or as an outcome of the strategic plan, was we expanded our board's positions, our slots, from 12 to 15, because the board recognized that we weren't able to, in thinking about inclusive and growing the diversity of our board, we weren't able to do that quickly enough based on how people would be turning off. So we added some positions so we can build up our board and create more, more diversity among its members.
Last question, staff. Now, I see 3 names, wonderful people. They're not there anymore. They're folks that I considered an integral part of your organization. You've lost a couple, you've gained a couple, and I think people need to understand that a staff for any nonprofit is very important. Maybe you want to talk about your staff a little bit.
I'll just speak to the staff who retired, and then I'll let Erin talk about some of our new team members. So we had 2 retirements at the vice president level in 2024 this year, and we hired 2 fantastic people, but combined the 2 that left, Susanna Weiss-Fregon and Barb Sambrook, were here for close to over 30 years. So we lost a lot of expertise and knowledge. But that is, to me, the story of how wonderful the Erie Community Foundation is, both externally but also internally, that they had stayed here for so long. We still have many long-term employees like Erin But Erin, do you want to talk about some of our newer folks?
Sure. So those who retired, they were good friends and they were fun to work with, but we have hired some new team members. And for me, it's reinvigorating too, because they come in with fresh ideas and a new look at the foundation. And so we added to the team Kaylee Pisani, she's in marketing communications, and we added Natalie Miller to our accounting team, and then Amanda Hubel is at our front desk as our operations coordinator. So those three hires have they're younger and they've brought some ideas, like even with social media. Kaylee and I work together, but she's come up with ideas that that I would have never thought of. So that is good to have, like a mix of history and then a mix of moving forward, especially as we reach our 90th anniversary, and then blink, it'll be 100 years. Before the Erie Community Foundation, what would be in 2035 will be 100 years old. Mm-hmm. And to have a mainstay like that in Erie really says a lot about our community and what we value.
2025, big party coming up. How are you going to celebrate your anniversary?
We're hoping to tell a lot of stories, maybe 90 of them. And then our annual meeting is June 12th, I think it is. And that will be when we talk about what our plans are for the next 10 years. And then we're also going to be unveiling a new website, probably in January of 2025. And that will be up to date and fresh and modern, and it will coordinate better with our new logos. So we're excited about that announcement. It'll be an easier website to navigate, especially for professional advisors, nonprofits, donors, and for students, because we have a robust scholarship program. When I started at the foundation, we might have had 30 or 40 scholarships, and now we're well over 100. So we're a real resource for students, for nonprofits, for professional advisors, and for donors.
I see nothing but the Erie Community Foundation fulfilling many great needs, and I say many, many. It seems like you're talking about hundreds when you look at all the programs you support, all the nonprofits. Once again, how many nonprofits are members of the nonprofit partnership? Over 400, did you say?
Yeah, I think that's right. So Erie Gives had 500 participating nonprofits this year, and the nonprofit partnership has over 400 members. So, and they range they range across all the different areas of, from everything from arts and cultural organizations to shelters and food pantries, animal welfare organizations, but then also the size is everything from an all-volunteer small organization to really big organizations. So we have a variety and a diversity of nonprofits in our community.
Your logo representing a seed, inciting growth, and not only that, you're helping many nonprofits and then subsequently many community members to survive, to meet everyday challenges, things that are very difficult sometimes to even talk about. Erin Fessler, VP of Marketing, Community Government Relations. And Karen, what a pleasure talking with you again. I want to thank both of you for your outstanding presentation. I think we just hit the tip of the iceberg. I just have to believe there are many, many more things that you can talk about, and we'll invite you to come back again and maybe pick a topic that's near and dear, or several that are near and dear to your heart, and we can let the folks know what is happening every day at the Erie Community Foundation. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Only with WQLN PBS NPR can you experience the best of the East Coast on one trip. From June 15th to the 20th, we're heading to Hershey, Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and New York City. That's 6 days of historic sites, museum tours, delicious meals, and motor coach comfort with your favorite Q crew. Don't miss out. Spots are filling fast. Reserve your seat now at WQLN.org/roadtrips and join us on our journey.
Get ready for our 2025 road trip adventures. Join your favorite Q crew from April 27th to May 1st for a southern escape to Pigeon Forge in Asheville. We've got 3 days planned in Pigeon Forge visiting Dollywood and other memorable attractions. Then spend a day in Asheville to tour the Biltmore Mansion. This trip includes delicious meals, tours, and motor coach transportation. You won't want to miss out on the scenic views of the Smoky Mountains. Grab your seat today at WQLN.org/roadtrips.
Welcome to We Question and Learn. celebrating our 20th year here on the air at WQLN NPR FM 91.3. We're on NPR One and about a dozen other podcast venues. And today, very, very special guest. I'm really happy to have a chance again after many, many years. Jake, forgive me for neglecting you. Jake Rouch, and your official title now. You're the executive director at this point in time of the Erie Regional Chamber and Growth Partnership.
I'm the, sounds egotistical, but no, I'm the president, interim president and CEO.
Okay, that's even better. Okay. And boy, when did this change come about? Was it recently?
July 1st.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't that long ago. Well, you've been at the Chamber many, many years. How long has it been?
Well, see here, I worked in Erie right out of graduate school in 91 to like 93, and then I left and ran the Du Bois Area Chamber of Commerce and their Economic Development Corporation. And I came back to Erie in 95 to be the executive director of the Erie Conference on Community Development. Mm-hmm. And then in 2002, we merged the Erie Conference with the Erie Area Chamber of Commerce. And so I've been with the Chamber since 2002.
Great. And since then, things have changed quite a bit. There was a lot of effort to enhance the value of the Erie Regional Chamber and Growth Partnership, if I can remember the story correctly. What is your memory of the transition back, can I say, in the old days?
Sure. Well, let's just, I guess what I would say is that the original vision was that we knew that there was a need to keep obviously a business organization, membership organization like the Chamber when we merged the two entities. But the Erie Conference's role was really that was a CEO-only organization, and they focused on longer-term strategic initiatives that would help improve the Erie region. So there was the most classic traditional thing that they did for years was under the leadership of Tom Hoffman. They really were the business might, making sure that the Interstate 79 didn't just stop at I-90, that it continued all the way to 12th Street, and then they continued to lobby and fight to get it down to State Street, and then ultimately the final leg, the East Side Connector. And then when I came on, we looked at a lot of different initiatives in the community. We were involved with others in both the creation of the hotel motel tax through the Third Class County Convention Center Authority Act, which led to the building of the convention center and financial support for the ballpark, the arena, and the Warner. We did a lot of work at that time looking at regional government in the region, and we had a regional government opportunities task force and looked really at a lot of different services and the like. And so there were strategic initiatives like that. There was a group, frankly, that looked at countywide 911 back in 97. We began work with the airport, believe it or not, in around 97, 98, 99 on their plan to extend the runway. So there's been a lot of longer term strategic initiatives that they were involved in. And when we formed the Chamber, the idea was to continue the Chamber, but to have the Growth Partnership work on the strategic initiatives. And we did that for several years under the leadership. The Growth Partnership was led by Mary Beulah, who's now with Erie Together. Mm-hmm. And that group would identify a variety of issues that they felt were important. Then they'd prioritize them, and they'd develop white papers on approaches to moving those forward. And so as we evolved over time, the strategic initiatives and the kind of the dedicated work, Mary left the Chamber and went to pursue the Erie Together work. And so we've evolved over time. We've always had a centralized focus on economic development and all aspects of that, with a central focus on trying to not be a competitor in any capacity with other entities, but to be the gateway into that system, to find out what businesses need and then proactively get them connected. And then over time, we've absorbed into our operation activities and functions that were valuable to the community. So one would be, there was a former group called the Innovation District. And when that organization went away, one of the pieces that they had was a technology accelerator, where you are looking for companies around the country, around the world, that have innovative technologies within a particular sector. Could be manufacturing, could be insurance, could be finance. And you bring them to Erie and you make an equity investment. You actually invest money into those entities with the hope that they will get sticky and stay in the Erie market. And that was to help bolster and grow what has been, up to that point, was an underperforming tech sector in the Erie region. And that was a very innovative program, not uncommon around the country, but very unique to Erie. And it has helped significantly in both those companies. Over 50% of them have customers here, employees here, have set up operations in the Erie market in some capacity, smaller, nothing significant at this stage, but still. And we stay connected with them. There's been over 40 of those companies. And but equally along the 20 plus years, there's been some just really transformational work done in the arena of innovation and entrepreneurship. And there was a group years ago that Beth Zimmer started called the Innovation Collaborative, which really kind of called out the economic development system for its lack of work in that space. And to her credit, I think she kind of lit a fire under a lot of organizations and individuals. And today we have an incredibly robust entrepreneurial and innovation related, technology related ecosystem. And those players that are contributing go well beyond. So we do our piece on the on the accelerator program. We also have created an angel investment fund here. But the innovation and entrepreneurship space has been bolstered dramatically by Radius Cowork and Sean Fedorko and his work there. Brian Slawins came to the market 6-7 years ago to run Ben Franklin Technology Partners and has done an incredible job. There have been small micro grant programs run by the city and or sponsored by the city and run by Paramount Pursuits, Trish Digliotto, and those thrive. In Kiva, the Erie County Redevelopment Authority, Tina Mangine and Chris Groner have managed funding for small businesses throughout the pandemic and through the arts. So there's a tremendous volume. The Small Business Development Center obviously is assisting small business formation all the time. And what we've seen is over the years is just an incredible hatching of what has happened for years, which is entrepreneurship is the backbone of Erie, people owning and starting companies, but we're seeing it on a smaller sized business scale, and some of them are growing into it. So there's been a consistent and great, and it should evolve. Erie is not a static economy. It's ever evolving. And we need to be responsive to that and supportive to that so that it can continue to do so.
How many members are in the chamber?
It fluctuates up and down. Right now, we're at about 560 businesses.
Oh, my goodness. That's quite a group. That's wonderful. I remember it being more, but when you take into consideration everything that's happened over the last 10, 20 years, that's a good number of folks. Now, how often does the chamber meet? How often does your team meet at the chamber?
Well, the staff meets every day. No, we have...
I'm not laughing at you. I'm proud of you for keeping everybody motivated.
Yeah. No, we have the board of directors presently meets on a quarterly basis.
There you go.
The executive committee meets right now. We're meeting monthly. The Finance Committee meets monthly. So we have a series of committees: Economic Development, Government Affairs, Governance and Bylaws, Business Engagement, and Executive Committee, and so those committees are meeting all the time. Then we have the chamber members. We have a series of events. So at least one of these happens every month. We'll have a business after hours hosted by a company where we invite all of our members, and they invite both their members, they invite their customers and their employees. It's a kind of the high end. It's kind of like the networking event for the masses. Those happen 4 to 6 times a year. They're a little bigger opportunity where you're going to get, 80 to 150 people assembling together. We have morning meetings limited to 30, which we call Connect for Coffee. That's an opportunity for those businesses that are there to give a 2-minute elevator pitch on who they are and what they do, and network and connect. Those are very useful time for all the people who go. We have business and brewskis, and that's at the end of the day, and we do at least one of those a month or every other month. That's where we go to a local institution that serves libations, and at those meetings, it's similar to the Connect for Coffee. It's limited to 30, but it's more like speed dating. So half the room stays at the table and the other half rotates, and they do the same thing. And it is intentional time for two businesses to kind of share their story with one another, and out of that grow their network and grow their understanding of the availability in the community. Then we have Tuit Talks, which is really kind of like happy hour, where it's just we're going to pick a place to support that business and get members to come together, and there is no structured format. We have our Erie Ambassador program, which is capped at 30 attendees per year. That's a 8-week program, basically a half a day every Tuesday or Wednesday. That day may change, and they get into particular aspects of our community, businesses or a sector, and get kind of an intensive deep dive into those businesses to deepen their awareness and understanding. And it also is a kind of you're kind of in class with 30 other business leaders in the community for an extended period. So it helps build a network there. And then we have our signature events, our annual meeting, our celebration of excellence, our Erie homecoming, and our golf outing. And so there's a lot of programming and activity that happens on an ongoing basis, in addition to our daily work and information sharing.
That's incredible. You also have, I think, 4 programs that are very important. Let me start by asking you about the Erie Ambassador program. How does that work?
Well, as I said, there's 30 individuals. It's capped at 30, and we rotate around. So what we try to do is we try to mix it by visiting different sectors. So we want to visit something in tourism, something in manufacturing, something in healthcare, something in service, and then we equally try to balance in or move into their entities that are in the public domain more so. And then we also like to just go to assets in the region. And sometimes we mix them. So sometimes we may go to an asset and visit, for instance, Port Farms, but the speakers there are covering another topic, such as rural development or impact quarry. And I always tell that class beforehand. They said, I'll bet $1,000 that if you can pass a lie detector test at the end of this program and say, I didn't learn anything about Erie, I'll pay you $1,000. And I'm very confident in that bet every year, because when you go and get a deep dive into the Erie Waterworks, when you go and get a deep dive into how PennDOT works, when you get behind the scenes and are able to tour Smith Provisions, or you're able to tour JTM Foods, There's so many businesses out there that you've driven by for years, or you didn't even know they existed. One of my favorite is recently, I think we did Berry Plastics. And
yes.
Berry did an expansion in partnership with the Erie County Redevelopment Authority in Little Italy. And that plant on an annual basis makes 4 billion caps for Pepsi and Coke products.
Unbelievable, yeah.
It's amazing. And I would say 99% of Erie County doesn't even know where that plant is, but it's just off Liberty Street. 4 billion caps a year. So that's a really exciting program. And again, that's the educational side, but then the positive side is the networking and the friendships and partnerships that come out of that.
One program I ran across, Jordan Fuller and the Fire Accelerator program. How is that going?
Well, it's going really well. It continues to evolve. As I briefly touched on before, the way in which an accelerator occurs, and through the first 7 years of that program, the funding support was provided by the Erie Community Foundation and Erie Insurance to the chamber. There is some administration overhead that helps cover Jordan's work and activity, but we've made investments in 44 companies over that time frame. And the game plan is that, and out of those 44, I think about 38 are still businesses that are still in existence, which for an accelerator is an incredibly high batting average. Given our age, you'd expect half of those companies to disappear. And you might say, well, why are you doing that? Well, we're doing it because number one is we're picking those companies based upon the uniqueness, the disruptive aspect of their technology in all different sectors. So when you bring companies to town that have unique, innovative tech solutions for manufacturing companies, we have a great ability then to connect them directly to potential customers here. And that's a win-win, because the customer, if they bite into the apple, gets a tool that's technology driven and exposes them to maybe a new way of thinking or approaching an ongoing problem. And the company gets a customer out of it. And so we've done that in financial technologies, insurance technologies, just educational related technologies, manufacturing technologies. And then the goal is that our investment stays with them. And when that company is acquired or goes public, then we get a return on that investment, and that the return on those investments, which should be happening in the next 2 to 3 years, because it's about a 7-year cycle. That's what you plan on. The return on those investments will come back here and populate and support the program into the future. And out of those companies, I would say there is one company that is on a legitimate path to an initial public offering, an IPO. And to have one that is legitimately on that track in a very unique space is frankly incredible, because you can have venture capital firms that are making hundreds of investments before they have one that's an IPO. So we're excited about that program. But it really is the richness of those people come to Erie, and they love Erie because Erie connects them to partners and real life opportunities.
I was reading a little bit about the ICE Angel Education Program. How's that going?
Yep. So the ICE Educational Program, ICE stands for Innovation Community of Erie. And there's an educational component, and then there's a venture investment firm side of it, fund. And so the ICE Education Program is a partnership we formed with the Angel Capital Association of America. And we bring in top flight instructors that are angel investors, meaning angels are individuals who come in at smaller dollar amounts, say 150,000 or less. Mm-hmm. Many times it could be 25, 50. And what they do is that the purpose of it is twofold. Number one, it is to educate folks in the economic development world, but really individual investors who are interested in taking some of the resources that they have and investing in these early stage companies locally. They could be part of our accelerator. They could just be a local company who's looking for investment capital, and educate them on the process and how to look at a company and do good, solid due diligence on that company, the questions to ask, the ways in which your investment can be structured, as well as how you could get paid on the back end, red flags to look for, as well as key questions to ask a potential investor. And then we also, in that, have all of our accelerator companies go through it. So they basically get educated on the other side. So they sit in there and they start to get a better feel for what are people looking for, which helps those companies formulate better pitches and strategies on how they build their companies. And then the ICE Angel Fund is comprised of, right now, about 15 individuals and institutions who've each put in, bought shares in the fund. And the share costs $25,000 for an individual, $50,000 for an institution, and it has about $850,000. It is member driven, so they review projects to make investments, and then they collectively make a decision to make an investment. And to date, and I do not have the names of those companies, but they have made commitments to invest in 2 companies. So it isn't, they don't invest in everything. They go through a very thorough process of looking at companies, but they have lots of deals that they can potentially invest in. And those investments could be in Erie, or they could be outside of Erie. They're investors, so they're looking for deals to make investments into, so we don't constrain them on that front.
Before we run out of time, we do have a few minutes though. Talk about your staff. How are you organized? How do you manage to get all this tremendous work done?
Well, we work everyone here is kind of cross-trained to be able to do a little bit of everything that we have to have done, and then we have core responsibilities. So Jordan Fuller handles all of our entrepreneurial, the Accelerate Fire, ICE, handles any work that we're doing in the entrepreneurial space, and then picks up and supports the balance of the team wherever possible. Our Director of Operations, Melanie Spader, she handles anything that's related to the finances of the organization and the operations of the organization, but equally then rolls up her sleeves and gets involved in the programming side of it, the events and the marketing. Curtis Jones is our Director of Government Affairs and is our primary point of contact for any business that has a concern or a need relative to permitting, regulation, works with the state and the federal level officials to make sure they're connected to businesses here in town that are seeking state or federal funding, and building awareness on that front. Lisa Songer is our manager of marketing and events. So all of those things, the ambassadors, the Tuit Talks, the Business and Brewskis, the signature events. She's responsible for planning those events, securing sponsorship for them, as well as marketing those events. And Del Birch is our business outreach specialist. So when companies have a challenge or a need, Del goes and meets with them personally and makes sure that they get connected to the right resource in the economic development system that can best meet their need. And then I'm working with the board and our top investors and members in general. And so everything that I just described to all of them doing, I have a hand in some capacity. And membership, we're down a couple of bodies right now, and we'll be filling those in the coming months. But we do want to add on someone focused on the membership side of it. So the first goal for us right now is we want to make sure that everyone who is a member is getting serviced at the highest level. and we retain those members, which we do have a high retention rate. And then we want to get out to the larger market to get more members in, because one of the things that we don't want anyone to ever think is that you have to be invited to be a member. You don't. Membership in the chamber is open to any and all businesses. You get out of it what you put into it. And so you have to take advantage of both the staff and the events and activities. And some might say, well, is it going to pay off for me? And the reality is that you could be a member for a year or two and you quote unquote didn't get paid off, but all it takes is one connection that leads to one door opening, that leads to a customer that could frankly pay for your membership for a decade or more. And so we don't guarantee business. What we do is we try to create pathways and opportunities for people to do business with one another.
Let's talk about something very important right now. Tell me about your board, how large it is, who gets to be on it, how does that all work?
So the board is right now about 30 members. We intentionally go after a very diverse cross-section of industry sectors. We have took to heart the Erie Community Foundation and nonprofit partnerships diversity pledge. So we seek diversity among the makeup of the board, both from a racial standpoint and men and women. We intentionally go after people that are not just running a good business, regardless of size, but are also engaged in the community. And so the makeup of the board is there is a governance and bylaws committee, and they review names that are forwarded to them by the staff, by individuals who've reached out and said, I'm interested in serving on the board. And they evaluate the board's composition presently from all those variables I talked about before. And then they make recommendations. And every year at our annual meeting, there's a slate of board members that are up for renewal. And there's some that have termed out, so they move off. And then there's some that are put on. And then the chair of the board has the privilege of making, I believe it's up to 3 chair appointments, and those are for a 1-year term.
This is a wonderful list. I encourage people to go to your website, first of all, and what a tremendous outline on all the good things you do. And the board list is very impressive. And it says to me that all these people are very, very concerned about Northwest Pennsylvania, Erie, Pennsylvania, and are great supporters of the Erie Regional Chamber and Growth Partnership.
Yeah, we have a great board, a very interested board, and our job from a staff level is to make sure that they're as informed as possible and that we bring to them the right questions where we need their guidance and input and direction and support. And so their service is greatly valued, and you're 100% right. They recognize that while maybe what we're doing doesn't help them directly, some of the larger businesses, they recognize the value of what the chamber can bring and what it does for so many other businesses in the community. And they want to be a part of that, and they want the business community to have a voice when decisions are being made throughout the region on a variety of matters.
You expressed that very well. Thank you. Jake, this has been a real honor and a pleasure to be able to catch up with you again. I apologize for taking too many years. And as the interim president and chief executive officer, we wish you the best. I already hear that you and your team and your board are doing a great job for our area. Thank you very much for being with us today.
You bet, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here.